I'm George Wrighster. He's Ralph Amsden, and this is the College Football Apostles presented by the Unafraid Show. And college football is here. It is no longer week 0. We got a full slate of games. And we have a bunch of things to talk to you guys about that you do not want to miss. There's a bunch of college football news. Obviously, the Connor Stallions sign stealer documentary has been in front and center, so we got to discuss that. There's a big lawsuit out of North Carolina that you're going to be able to get a video about here on Unafraid Show, and it is going to blow your mind. We have games tonight. Deion Sanders versus everybody. This North Dakota Colorado game is important to everybody. We're going to get into our week 1 predictions, and there's a game of quarterback musical chairs that you do not want to miss. And of course, you guys, make sure that you guys like, subscribe, tell a friend about the Unafraid Show and College Football Apostles. Subscribe, get notifications, and everything else because we love college football, and we know that you do too because you are here with us. All right, so we're going to start today, Ralph. The sign-stealing Connor Stallions came out, and this was obviously a big deal. And what was your impression of the documentary? Because I liked it.
I watched it twice just in case I missed something the first time around. I was very bored.
Really?
Yeah, I guess I don't know what I was looking for. Maybe that's my problem is I don't know what I don't know what questions I had going in.
Oh,
Maybe
yeah.
it's
You were like, I knew the answer to the test already. So,
yeah. Have you ever what if somebody made a documentary about how Oregon got left out of the 2001 BCS National Championship? That would be you would watch it. You'd probably be a participant in it. It would be very interesting to you, right?
Yes.
What if that documentary came out in 2002?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So that was kind of what I was like, because we watched the Manziel thing and we had 10 years of, I forgot about this.
Yeah.
This never went away. And the notice of allegations dropped or was leaked about a week before. So I guess I just don't know what it was I was looking for. And you and I are around college football coaches, graduate assistants. There's one that we know very well who was involved in a scandal at a school who has moved on to media. They're go-getters.
That was my takeaway. I appreciated Connor Stallions so much more after this. First of all, he's sitting there lying, right? So you know that he's lying about Michigan, but here's where I'm confused. Is he a guy who just loved Michigan so much where he's essentially a celebrity stalker, right? Stalking Michigan, and granted, he's good at his job and all those things, or is he like Rain Man who can transfer that somewhere else? Because I was like, if I'm a college football coach, I'm hiring Connor Stallions. But I don't know if this is just something that he can translate away from Michigan and he can just be an upstanding citizen, or is he the criminal that goes to jail, right? Who was running a huge criminal enterprise.
Is he Jordan Belfort?
Who's Jordan Belfort?
Wolf on Wall Street.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, nobody's going to take financial advice from this guy, obviously, because of what he did in his previous life, but he's famous now.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is he the guy who goes like Catch Me If You Can? Is he the guy that goes into jail and then comes out and then teaches everybody else how not to
forge checks,
be a victim of forged checks and all of this stuff, and be a groundbreaking, recruiting thing with his manifesto and all of that? Or is he just obsessed with Michigan football and everything else? So,
well, he did have that, they showed a lot of screenshots of his recruiting database that he's built. He could absolutely have a consultancy business.
Yeah. That's
right.
What I'm saying.
he probably have to like shell company it, and because a lot of these are public schools, and if anybody found, I think there's going to be a lot of people tattling on Connor Stallions for a few years, whereas I don't think this was big enough of enough deal to kick him outside the circle of football. I personally don't feel that way.
he will be back in 3 to 5 years. He will be back. But
Didn't he already
in terms
lose a
of
high school
back
job?
forward facing, like he'll be back forward
Yeah.
facing in the next 3 to 5 years. We will hear his name in some coaching circle. He will coach in college football again, I believe.
Do you
But
think
in
he
the
could ever be a
meantime,
head coach?
with as driven and focused as he is, yes, as long as he can play within the rules, and he's like, see, but the first thing is he's going to have to be honest first. He's not going to get the opportunity until he's honest.
What do you feel like he lied about?
He lied about the Central Michigan game. He lied about the coaches not knowing at Michigan. Like, if you want to be a college football head coach, you got to clear the slate, because because that's the only way that people are going to feel like you're contrite and you've changed. Because if they still feel like, oh, you're still lying about this, that means that they believe that you could possibly do this again. And people have to believe, like, no, learned my lesson. Here's what I did. I would never do this again.
And I've seen you saying stuff I don't see a lot of other people say. You want Jim Harbaugh to face consequences at the NFL level.
Yeah, yes. The same way Jim Tressel did. The NFL suspended Jim Tressel. And you can't, if you're the NFL, be a safe haven for coaches to just do whatever they want in college and then come in the NFL like, oh, yep, sorry, and then leave everybody else in shambles.
But you're not even necessarily, you're not even talking about the Connor Stallion stuff or the COVID violations. You're talking about if someone at Michigan hacked Catapult.
Yes, because why would you not do it in the NFL if you can do it?
Right.
Yep. All right, there is a lawsuit in North Carolina. And this is something that you guys can watch a video on the Unafraid show about, but I wanted to give you a little bit of a synopsis of it because this could impact your college football team, particularly the University of Tennessee. Because in North Carolina, public schools and private schools are governed by two different athletic associations. And one got stripped of power by the government, by the Senate out in North Carolina, and it has led to the private schools being the kids that go to private school being able to have NIL and capitalize on it and make money, and the public schools cannot. So you have Tennessee having a 5-star quarterback in the 2026 class who can't monetize, who can't take money from Topps or Fanatics, one of these trading card companies. And you have a 2025 tackle who's committed to them, who now can and has a shop set up and is making money. So now this has led to the quarterback's mom from the 2026 class filing a rightful lawsuit. And so this is it's just a huge bureaucratic mess that has impacted, and there's clearly some sort of nefarious behavior going on with North Carolina as it relates to the public and private schools. So you guys gonna want to check that out.
Yeah, man, this is weird. And my kids obviously go to a North Carolina public school. When I first heard that there was, you're really the one that got me interested in NIL legislation because you've been following it closely from the very beginning. I think you testified before Congress. You had your hands in all sorts of stuff. And I remember reaching out to you and saying, hey, the public and private schools out here have two different rules. If you're a private school kid and you play in your own league, you can capitalize on this. And if you're in a public school, you can't. And that's really weird. And that was kind of the last conversation we had about it. But then I went out to this guy's commitment, David Sanders Jr., and at Providence Day School. And he, same school that Jaden Davis, who's a quarterback at Michigan now, came from. And, he made this announcement and he said, these are my 4 schools I'm thinking about going to. It was like Nebraska, Ohio State, Tennessee, and one other. And he said, I think it was maybe Georgia. And he said, whatever team I choose, there's going to be merchandise available in my team store in your colors right after this commitment. And I think people knew he was going to commit to Tennessee. So people had the ability to buy $40 t-shirts, $50 hoodies in orange from him right away. And I thought that was a very cool thing. The 2026 quarterback's name is Faison Brandon. He's up in like the Winston-Salem area or whatever in Wake County. And he's been offered $1 million supposedly by like Lee for Tops or something like that. And he has to turn it down because public schools can't have it. But the weirdest thing about this is when I did the research for the story and the video that you're putting out, that the reason that I cannot even believe that this is something that is involved, but the whole like nationwide trans panic over men competing in women's sports is actually the reason why public school kids can't get NIL. The fact that those two things are tied together is completely insane.
Yeah.
You're just going to have to trust me on this. Go to unafraidshow.com, watch this video, and find out how North Carolina's
tomorrow.
Yeah, North Carolina's public school kids getting screwed over because of the Republican state legislature sneaking something into an auto insurance bill that made sure that they were able, and whether you believe this is a good thing to do or not, they snuck it into an auto insurance bill so that they could take over the association powers, stop kids from capitalizing on NIL, and then also dictate that if you're a biological male, you can't compete in female sports. I don't even know if that was happening in North Carolina. I haven't paid any attention to it. But the fact that that is the reason why this kid can't make $1 million, and that Rolanda Faison is suing, or Rolanda Brandon is suing, is just an insane story. And I think you articulated it really well.
Yep. All right. Next thing up. So the ACC, things got spicy last week because you have Florida State and Georgia Tech playing in Ireland. Florida State took an L. I felt like that Florida State plus 10.5 or 11. Well, sorry, minus 10.5 or 11 was like some of the easiest money of the entire year. And because Georgia Tech had top 10 production, returning, that means you have a veteran team playing against a team that breaking in a new quarterback, even though he's a super senior. You're breaking in all the draft picks. There's emotion from last year, everything in it. Well, Florida State loses. And remember, so I got hit over the head for our videos and all that stuff over this. This is what I did. This video, Ralph. I'm sorry, this graphic. So I believe that Florida State will win the ACC. And people are like, you started out wrong already. And I'm like, no, I haven't. And I think that people are mistaken, Ralph, or just not understanding how the 12-team playoff is going to work, which is if you took a loss this early in the season to Georgia Tech prior to this year, even though that's an ACC game, that may have crippled you from making the college football playoff. Probably would have, depending on what Georgia Tech did the rest of the year. But in this case, all you have to do is make the ACC championship because they're going to play, Florida State's going to play 4 non-conference games. And they can lose all 4 of them and still be the number 3 seed in the college football playoff. Because all you have to do is win your conference. Win your conference championship game, and you will be one of the top 4 seeds. So I wanted people to understand that because I do understand the confusion and how you're calculating losses versus prior to this year. And that means that Miami, Clemson, well, both of them would have to go undefeated in the ACC to make sure that Florida State is no longer possible. But Florida State has a chance to knock both of them off. So, Ralph, do you believe that Florida State is out of contention, even though it's not mathematically, but just in general out of the ACC?
No, and I was on the other side of this. I believe that Florida State was going to start slow. I did not think they were going to lose. But here's the deal. Georgia Tech ran 60-some plays. Florida State had 3 tackles for a loss. And Brent Key said in the College Game Day pregame interview, I don't know if you saw these interviews where they did the sky cam and had the coaches walking around on the field by themselves. Really weird interview. They had like the studio, and then they had Mike Norvell just walking the field by himself, and he was mic'd up. Then they did the same thing with Brent Key. They asked Brent Key what the key to the game was, and he said line of scrimmage. Simple as could be, line of scrimmage. And that's really what it was. They went out and punched Florida State in the mouth. I think Florida State can correct some things. I think they can figure some stuff out, and I think they can be right there at the end. The reason that people pushed back for such a long time on an expanded college football playoff is because they said it was going to render the regular season less meaningful. And now some of those same people are like, Florida State's out of it. No, they're not. And that's the cool thing about it, is that your whole season isn't over after 1 week.
Yep. They literally control their own destiny. They still control their own destiny, making it to the ACC championship. They literally control their own destiny. So, but this Georgia Tech team, who was picked to finish in the middle of the ACC, I do not believe that this is a team that can win the ACC, but this is a team can make sure that somebody else don't win the ACC. I see them finishing somewhere in between 3rd and 5th.
You mean going deep into the 4th quarter before you complete a pass beyond 5 yards is not good for your long-term health as a football team?
That part. That part.
Yeah. Shout out to Haynes King for being tough as hell, but he was a running back in that game.
Okay. And let's talk about DJ Uiagalelei, who people were criticizing, said he was trash and all of this stuff. He was really good on 4th down when they needed it. And I'm like, whatever play calling or mentality that he had on 4th down, put that on 1st down. That's what they got to do. And Florida State will be fine if they do that. And then they look at that tape and was like, we got punked. And we got to be more physical.
You have those 2 4th and long conversions on tape now, and you got to ask yourself, if you're Mike Norvell, like, we really went out there and acted like we didn't trust this man.
Yep.
For 3 quarters, and then when we needed him most, he delivered. Is that on him? Because he is historically not good in the first week of the season against the first Power 5 team, right? We talked about it last week.
Yeah.
Or is that on you? Because when you needed him, he showed up. Should you have depended on him earlier in the game? I don't think this was that bad of a loss. Georgia Tech didn't turn the ball over, and they had no negative plays. That is a recipe for success.
Yep.
It is. Florida State had to kick and Florida State had to kick a couple of field goals when they could have been touchdowns. Otherwise, that game would have been over with.
Yep, exactly. And we got a bunch of games today. Thursday. We got North Dakota State, Colorado. And this was an interesting game because helmet communication is a real thing this year. So the Connor Stallions thing pushed college football into the NFL realm quickly, but the FCS teams are not doing that yet. It'll probably be adopted next year. But for this year, North Dakota State, who plays an FBS team pretty much every year. Last year they played Arizona State, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I believe so.
Yeah. And then this year they're playing Colorado. They've played Oregon.
Oh, Arizona. They played Arizona.
Yeah. That's who it was. Yes, because you thought they were going to lose. And I was like, not a chance.
Almost did. They almost did.
Hey, almost only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, buddy.
That's true. That's true.
So North Dakota State, instead of signaling their plays in still, they were like, no. We are going to pay for this helmet communication. And they're like, this is going to be a level playing field, and we're going to need it in the FCS anyway. So if it's a year early, so what? Ralph, I cannot overstate the importance of this game for Colorado. Colorado, who has 42 transfers in this year. They have 42 new scholarship players between the high school class and the transfer portal. This year, Deion's second season. Whole new offensive line. North Dakota State is not the team that you want to try to figure it out with. Because Colorado's skill position players with everybody from Shador to Travis Hunter to the rest of the wide receiving core. is really, really good. Like they have one of the best skill position groups in all of America, in all of college football. But when it comes to their offensive line, which typically offensive lines to be good need continuity.
Right?
Like like everybody always talks about them. Oh, they have so many starts together. Yes, it's communication. It's all of this. And offensive linemen don't really hop in. The best ones typically don't hop in the transfer portal unless they're coming from smaller schools. So, Ralph, I do not. I believe Colorado is going to win this game. This, if I were a Colorado fan, would scare the hell out of me.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, like that, good on you for scheduling this game. It's that this is a team that I think has like 8 FCS championships since 2011 or
Yes.
something like that, and so you know, uh, at least they're not scared. And Deion coached in the FCS. He knows,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like
He knows that.
he
Oh, yes, exactly. He knows that you can't
yeah.
just you can't just roll your helmets out and win. And the line says it all. This is a 10.5 point game for Colorado. 10.5 point game. I'm looking at this and everything in me says Colorado is going to win this game and win by
Okay.
more than 10.5 points.
Okay.
I am also at the same time, I would not. Now, while I believe they're going to win this game by as many points, they're going to cover this spread. I also would not be surprised if they lost. Well, sorry. I would not be shocked if they lost. I would be surprised, but I would not be shocked.
Okay. So I'm going to read you 5 numbers and see if you can tell me what those numbers are.
Okay.
218, 195, 207, 127 against an air raid team, and 268.
Oh, it is you said against the air raid team, so I'm assuming that you're saying about rushing yards that Colorado gave up.
Rushing yards that Colorado gave up in the final 5 games of last season.
Yeah, but Shadur wasn't playing in the last games.
But what does that have to do with your run defense?
I don't know. Just figured that'd be a talking point for Colorado people.
Yeah. You know these people well. They gave up an average of 200 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns over the last 5 games. North Dakota State, they run the ball. That's what they do. And then they have Cam Miller at quarterback. You talk about putting the microphone in his headset. Cam Miller, his year last year, 2,700 yards, 19 touchdowns, only 4 picks, 72% completion, 630 rushing yards, and 13 touchdowns. He doesn't make any mistakes. So I think in order the 10.5 line, I think Colorado will probably win, but in order to win
this is gonna be a grind. If they can't stop the run, this is gonna be a problem. This is
or just force a turnover. Can you force a turnover?
Yep. All right. Now this goes into if they lose, right? Or if they look ugly. Deion's coming under fire. And he's come under fire from Paul Finebaum, from other people. And he got on a podcast with RG3 this last week, on his Out of Pocket podcast, and he talked about it. And he was like, he said that you don't hate on anybody you don't talk about anybody that's not relevant. You don't talk about anybody that's not shining. They talk about you when you're up and when you're not down. And he's right on some level, but Deion has to realize, because I want Deion to be successful, but I do believe that he has to realize too, there has to be like that and I understand that he's trying to build men, he's trying to do all of this stuff, but you're a college football coach. Winning matters, and you can't impact these kids' lives on the level that you want to if you're fired or if you're not winning, because you're not going to get some of the top players. and he's got to recruit high school. He has like I don't know how to want somebody to be successful when they're doing things that are counterproductive to being successful.
Yeah, I mean, you every time you post about Deion Sanders, you get a bunch of comments that are like, one, why are you talking about Deion Sanders? And two, you're a hater. And number one, you're talking about Deion Sanders because he's interesting. He's always
Yeah.
been interesting. He's always going to be interesting. And number two, wanting the best for somebody and critiquing their methods doesn't mean that you hate them. It just means that you don't fall in with literally every single thing they do.
Yep.
You save that for LeBron James. I'm sorry, I had to sneak that. I had to sneak that shot in there. Sorry.
That was a good one. That was a
But
good
most
one.
people, but you can't treat Deion Sanders like most people treat their politicians. You can say it is very obvious that Colorado is in a place that they never would have been
Yep.
without Deion Sanders. It is very obvious that he's changing a lot of kids' lives. It's very obvious that he's making a lot of kids a lot of money. But if he wants to win, then he's going to have to do X, Y, Z. I think that's a completely fair way to go about it. If it makes Deion mad, it makes Deion mad. If it makes Deion Jr. get on Twitter and blast you, then it is what it is. But the Paul Finebaum thing, I want to just push back on Deion just a little bit because, George, if I asked you if you wanted a Reese's Peanut Butter Cup, what would you say?
F no.
Right,
Throw
because you
that.
think
Throw it in the trash. It is the worst combination. Chocolate and peanut butter. It is horrendous. Actually, you know what? I'm making a separate video, Ralph, just about that. Just about how bad Reese's Pieces, Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, Butterfingers, and everything in between are. Chocolate and peanut butter do not belong together. And anybody who's been listening to my stuff for long enough or been on college football apostles, Pac 12 apostles, you know I don't do like the shtick stuff to try to get. No, this is an authentic, um, you know, like that
an
something that
authentic,
people need to hear.
yeah, an authentically bad opinion. But I want to go. I want to go back to this. So if I asked you if you wanted a Reese's Peanut Butter Cup, you're gonna say no. That's gross. I don't eat that.
Yep.
Right. That doesn't mean that. So if my response was, "But you're thinking about one right now, aren't you?" I'm like, yeah, because I said I don't want one, and you're the one that brought it up. So
Yeah.
like this whole idea that like, yeah, but Paul Finebaum's talking about us. Yeah, he was talking about you to say that he doesn't want to talk about you. That's not like, so I don't understand the point that Deion Sanders is trying to make here. Now, in a vacuum, Deion Sanders is right. Everybody's talking about Deion Sanders. Colorado is more relevant than they've ever been, and you can bet your ass every commentator in America is going to have an eye on the North Dakota State game. You know we're all watching the Colorado State game and the Nebraska game. We've been thinking about that game for the last 6 months.
Yes.
So they are incredibly relevant. So Deion Sanders in a vacuum is correct. He's as relevant as it gets in college football right now. But the idea that he's going after Paul Finebaum for saying, I don't care about Deion. Like, no, just because he said he said your name doesn't mean that he cares. What he's saying is, I don't care. And he was asked that question. So I believe Paul Finebaum, but I also believe when Deion says that that Paul Finebaum is irrelevant to the Big 12, Colorado, what they're trying to do, I think all that's true as well.
Yeah, 100%. All right, the next game up today is, and this is a Power 5 on Power 5.
Wait. You're skipping the best part.
What?
Deion accused Oregon of cheating.
Oh my God, yes. Yes. Okay. So last year when Oregon played Colorado, that was Colorado's first loss, right? I think it was. Yeah. Yeah, they were 3-0 or 4-0 coming into that game. And remember, I told everybody, I was like, yo, if they're undefeated, when they were undefeated coming in that game, I was like, they are going to get destroyed. And oh, George, you're crazy, and this and that. They beat them so badly. I think it was 42-6. And that 6 came at the end of the fourth quarter against the backups. And it was so bad that they immediately accused Oregon of hacking into their database to watch their film on Catapult and all of this stuff. And so they turned it into the Pac-12 right after the game. And then the Pac-12 was like, okay, well, we're going to do an investigation, provide us proof. Catapult did an investigation, and Colorado ultimately they didn't respond back. They were like, yeah, this, because there was nothing there. Do you realize how bad it is when you whoop somebody's ass so bad that they think you cheated? But as the season went on and Colorado wasn't having success at the end of the year, I think that then it was like, oh, wow. So either everybody hacked our stuff or we're not that good.
I don't have a problem with this at all. I don't.
I don't have a problem with it. I just thought it was hilarious.
It is hilarious, but I remember I told you at one point that I'm not a super competitive person. You disagree.
You are very competitive, but okay.
I can't. Well, the funny thing is, I can't argue with you about that because it proves your point. So I just have to sit here and be like, okay, whatever. So it's like a checkmate thing. I hate it, so I told you the only game I really like to play is Connect Four, and then I'm actually really really good at it. Like I got a lot of confidence in it, and so you and I started playing Connect Four online, and you smoked me like 17 times in a row. And to the point where I came out to your house, I beat you in person, and then I've never played you again. I refuse to. Right? So when I beat you in person, immediately I was like, oh, he cheats. Like he's got like an
Are you
app.
serious?
That was my first thought.
Wow.
But it doesn't mean that doesn't mean that I gave that thought oxygen.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that I tried to report you to the Connect Four Commission.
I didn't know this. This is new information. This is great. Okay, come on.
Yeah, so I just when it came out this week that Colorado got beat so bad that they accused Oregon of cheating, I was like, oh, I know how this feels. And I hate for Colorado that it came out for them because that's embarrassing. I never would have admitted that I even had this thought to you had this story not come up.
Oh my God.
I wasn't embarrassed for Colorado. I mean, I was embarrassed that it came out, but the second that happened, I was like, "Oh no, I've been Colorado in this situation."
Oh my God, bro, that is hilarious. My cheeks hurt right now. All right, so
did you cheat?
No, hell no. I love it. It was like I didn't give it any oxygen, but did you cheat? Oh my cheeks hurt.
But I mean, it was the equivalent of 42-6. It was like, and then you would start a new game like 5 seconds after winning every time.
Yeah, because I just like to keep playing.
Oh my God! Don't play Connect Four against George.
Hey! So we bought one of them giant Connect Fours for the house, and nobody can beat me, and they won't play me anymore because Connect Four is a math problem, and I'm really good at math. So I kind of gamify the whole game, like you know what I mean. So I like calculate how many moves there are left, and it's a long story. But
Which is why I think I'm better in person because I'll be talking to my kids about their day, and they're like, "Wait, how'd I lose?" And I'm pretty sure I was sitting in your kitchen being like, "Remember when you were on the Jaguars?" And you're like, "Yeah, that was pretty cool." And I'm like, "Gotcha,
gotcha." All right, so are you taking Colorado minus 10.5 or NC State? I'm sorry, or North Dakota State?
I'm not taking a minus 10.5, but I think they'll win this game. I think eight to 10 points is better.
All right, Power 4 game today. North Carolina versus Minnesota. We got North Carolina starting. Well, they're going to play two quarterbacks. Max Johnson, who transferred with his brother, the tight end from Texas A&M, and Connor Harrell. They're both expected to play versus Max Brosmer from New Hampshire, who transferred to Minnesota. And Minnesota needs some help at offense. Let's just say this. Their offense is challenged for years.
How come we talked about coaching pressure and coaching hot seat all summer long? I don't think we ever once mentioned PJ Fleck.
Because he's not under pressure or on the hot seat. Like
you think Minnesota fans think that this is probably the best we could do He keeps us relevant every year. He keeps us in games.
Yeah,
every year.
and they're like, he'll figure it out soon. But it's literally the offense is the only thing he's got to figure out. They're recruiting better.
Yeah.
They like he just has to figure out the offense. That's the difference. I'm looking at this game. We won't go over the line on this one, even though it's 2 points for North Carolina. Just who do you think wins?
Well, you got me all hyped with the video you made about Mac Brown being the future of college football, even though he's the oldest coach. So I'm kind of rooting for North Carolina. I don't think they'll win the ACC, but I'm rooting for them to just win out this year, because the better they do, the more coaches can see that it doesn't matter if you're 73 years old. If you're able to roll with the changes, if you're able to go with the flow, you will be successful. And so I guess I don't care that much about this game. But I do want North Carolina to win. I just don't know enough about Minnesota, really. And this kid, I am fascinated by this kid from New Hampshire, though. He's got back-to-back 3,000-yard seasons, never turns the ball over. Can that translate to Big Ten play? That you're going to see a lot more schools dipping down into the FCS, I think.
Yeah. I mean, and just hopefully Minnesota's offense and offensive coordinator under PJ Fleck, that they don't nerf him and turn him into like that they don't drag him down to their Iowa style offense. And I mean, because Iowa gets a lot of hate and recognition for their terrible offense because of the nepotism that Kirk Ferentz showed to his son Brian Ferentz, and keeping him around with one of the worst offenses in college football for years upon years.
Yeah.
But people don't give Minnesota enough credit for having terrible offense lately.
Right. They did fire the one coordinator that you hated that ended up going to Colorado and ruining their offense as well.
Yep.
So at least they do make changes out there. Can I ask you a question? Because you used this word the other day when you're talking about Quinshon Judkins in NCAA, the video game. Yeah. What is nerfing? What does nerf mean?
Oh, dude, I'm glad you asked that, because I just said this in the kitchen, and Denisha was like, who is my wife, said, George, what are you talking about nerfing? So if you play video games, if you play, oh my gosh, I can't remember that game where you parachute out of the sky and then you land on,
yeah.
skins. I played the game with
whatever I know the competitor was PUBG.
Yes.
It starts with an F, I think. I don't remember.
Fortnite,
yeah.
Damn it.
Young people screaming at the
they're like, it's Fortnite.
Yeah.
So Fortnite, or whether it's Fortnite, PUBG, Call of Duty, whatever game it is, there are sometimes weapons or people or characters or something that come in that are, as they say, OP, overpowered. And they have some, and they can do things that it makes the game unfair. So then people figure it out, and then people only use that thing because it's so powerful that you can't beat it. So everybody has to join it. So if you nerf it, so think about guns. You have a gun, shoots, kill people, right? Hurts them really bad. What does a Nerf gun do? It doesn't kill you.
It doesn't. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's soft.
So that's what nerfing means. It's like it's like the company Nerf. It's like a Nerf gun versus a real gun.
It's like when you childproof all the cabinet corners when you got.
Yes.
You got your
exactly
your 5-year-old running around the house.
Exactly. Like the 5-year-old can still get hurt. I like that example better. The 5-year-old can still get hurt, but he might not need stitches.
Yeah, and the cabinets might survive his hard head.
Yep. Another game I'm watching tonight, Ralph, that I didn't tell you about. I'm watching Sacramento State, San Jose State, because Ontario Smith Jr. should be playing for Sacramento State. He was a little banged up during camp, but we may see him tonight. My former teammate, Ontario Smith, his son's playing at Sac State, plays wide out. So excited to see him there. But now, Ralph, it is time to get to Saturday. Yes, I've been waiting for this over 200 days. This is Ralph. I am like a kid in a candy store right now. We have games upon games, and we're going to talk about the 5 biggest games of this weekend. And I could not be any more excited. And these will be the games that we pick, keep score of, and everything else. Because last week was week
Starting
0.
now. Starting now.
Yes, because last week was week 0. It was our breakfast ball for our picks. And yeah, I went the Florida State one. Oh, felt so great. Oh, excited. But I didn't do so well on the other games with the FCS teams and with Nevada SMU. Learned some things about both of those teams
Yes, we
and
did.
Nevada and peep the Nevada situation. We talked about it on last week's show where Nevada is playing. Well, Nevada played SMU last week. They started Brendan Lewis, but Pete Thamel tweeted out that Chuba Purdy, his shoulder's getting a little bit better. He's starting to practice. So you know what that means. That as soon as Chuba Purdy is hurt, Chuba, right?
Chuba, you nailed it. You
Okay,
nailed it.
Chuba Purdy. As soon as he's healthy, he will be replacing Brendan Lewis at quarterback. Book it.
Yeah, I thought Brendan Lewis played well. I thought he looked good. I'm not going to argue against the Purdy getting in the game. I've known that family a long time. I root for him, but I will say this: I went 3-1 last week, and I was proud of going 3-1, except for that the one was that SMU game, and I believe I called it the lock of the century or something like that.
Yeah.
And not only did SMU not win by 4 touchdowns, they also almost lost the game outright, to the point where I was like, is Preston Stone point shaving? Like, what is? And he started like 1 for 7 for 23 yards, got benched for like 10 minutes. But by the end of the game, not only did he figure it out, he was feeling himself a little bit.
Yes.
Like Stella got her groove back type situation right in the middle of the game. And that was a lot of fun to see. And that receiver for SMU, his name is escaping me right now, but he is a superstar. And so, probably enough so where I should go actually learn his name because I think he's going to be making some plays all year long.
Okay, so we have Clemson versus Georgia in a neutral site game, and then it's going to feature Cade Klubnik at quarterback versus Carson Beck. Ralph, I cannot understand. And what's the line on this game?
It was 12.5. And so that was as of a couple of days ago. If you want to go with the lines as they were as of yesterday morning, or I can pull up the current one, it's completely up to you. I know we kind of plan this a day in advance, and the lines are fluid. So if you want to go with the current lines, we can, or we can go with the what they were as of yesterday morning.
Okay, so currently we have 13.5.
So it's even moving more toward Georgia.
Yes.
Okay.
I cannot understate how important that this game is for Clemson. I cannot understate it because this game is about Dabo Swinney and his future and the way that he wants to do things. Because Clemson, they do not get in the transfer portal. Their players don't transfer at a high rate either. So they're saying we're going to stand on business on our recruiting. Our coaches must do a better job developing all of that stuff, which I do love. But if he gets his doors knocked off by Georgia, there are going to be those talks like, can he adjust to the new world of college football? And this is one of those litmus test games. If you lose the game by 3 points, 7 points, so what? If you lose by 21, 24 points and Georgia just takes you behind the woodshed and whoops you, there's going to be some Dabo Swinney. Is he equipped for this, or in the new world of college football? Because he's obviously a great coach, won multiple national championships. But is he prepared for what is reality now?
Mm-hmm. Well, Georgia's first 2 games last year against teams that actually matter, you had a 10-point win against South Carolina and a 7-point win against Auburn.
Yep.
I don't feel this is still a Carson Beck quarterback team. So I personally don't feel like they're going to come in and blow the doors off of Clemson in the first week. They actually opened the 2022 season, 2021 season. No, 2022. They opened 2022 against Clemson. They won 10-3, right? The only example that I can point to where Georgia came in the first game of the season, I'm sorry,
No,
and
we don't
blew a
need to talk
team
about
up.
that. We don't need
All
to talk
right, well,
about
there
that.
was a game against a team that shall not be mentioned that lost 49-3 against Georgia in the opening week. Is this team closer to the Stetson Bennett super senior year, or is it closer to what we saw out of Carson Beck last year? So that
That's a good
makes me
question.
think that it's going to be a little bit closer of a game. I think Dabo Swinney's a great coach. I don't know if Clemson is going to score, but I think defensively they might hold up okay. So I'm going with Clemson plus 13.5.
So you got Duke minus. So Clemson last year lost to Duke 28-7. They lost to Florida State 31-24, Miami 28-20, and NC State 24-17. That's where then that's when they got on a roll against Notre Dame, Georgia Tech, North Carolina, South Carolina, and then the bowl game against Kentucky. So, but let's talk about the Cade Klubnik thing for a second. Are
Mm-hmm.
you a Cade Klubnik believer?
Believe it or not, I was at Cade Klubnik's first game where he came in and took over for DJ Uiagalelei. That was against Syracuse. Syracuse was 6-0 at the time. Dino Babers was still the coach. Um, and in that game, it very much seemed like he gave them a spark over DJU, but at no point was I like, oh, this kid knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
So I would say no. I would say no, I am not a Cade Klubnik believer. I haven't just seen him go out and run an offense in a way. And you got to understand that when we're talking about a 5-star quarterback playing at Clemson, we're going to compare them to Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson. We
Yeah.
just are. And he's not those guys. And in fact, he's kind of been a continuation of DJU in that none of it looks super fluid.
Correct. So, and they have a new offensive coordinator because their last offensive coordinator is now the head coach at at Virginia. So, so yeah. But now let's talk about Georgia and Carson Beck because this offense. Now, granted, last season they started out the year with UT Martin, Ball State, but they obviously won both of those games by over 40 points. Then came South Carolina, their first test, and that they won that by 10, but it was actually a closer game than that. Then they beat up on UAB, but that was closer in the beginning too. And then it seemed like Carson Beck really caught his stride, and then they really started hammering people until they got to Georgia Tech, which they only won by 8 points. And then they lost to Alabama. So I do think that you're right that this could be closer, but who are you taking in this minus 13 and a half? I'm going to take the Georgia Bulldogs because Cade Klubnik, I do believe that he will give you a turnover or two, and one of them's going to end up in the end zone, and that's going to end up pushing it for a cover.
Okay, I'll take Clemson just because of how Georgia looked early in the season last year against their two toughest opponents in their first 5 games.
All right. Next game up. Ralph. I could not be more excited about this game, even though it's not going to get the same pomp and circumstance as other games are. And this is Penn State versus West Virginia. Everything about this game, Ralph, screams to me, screams like that we're gonna figure out a lot about Penn State right now. Andrew Aller, their quarterback, who he's a physical masterpiece. Like he looks good getting off the bus. But he's going to be the difference in them they're probably going to make the college football playoff, finishing third in the Big Ten, but it could be the potential of being fourth or fifth as well, or really having a chance to beat Oregon and Ohio State. It's literally on him because Penn State puts out good defenses. And is he going to have the weapons on offense? And is he going to play well enough? Because he's been in this DJ Uiagalelei, same thing with Cade Klubnik. Like, it just doesn't look fluid, doesn't look consistent. The accuracy is not always there. The anticipation, and it seems like the coaches don't trust him with the way that they call their game plan.
I agree with you to a point. Where I get a little bit off track is that this was the season opener last year. And it's the game that made Penn State fans believe that Drew Aller was going to lead them to a national championship. Because he had 308 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, no turnovers, and he made a lot of really good decisions within the offense. I think the one thing that kept people from all being on your page about Drew Aller, which is like, did him and Brock Purdy have a Freaky Friday? Because Brock Purdy plays like he's 6'5", 240, and he's like 6'1", 180.
Yeah.
And Drew Aller plays like he's 6'1", 180, and he's enormous. But Drew Aller does not turn the ball over. So he doesn't always complete his passes. He was sub 60%, but he only threw 2 picks last year, one against Indiana and one in their bowl game. And so, I think.
What are we supposed to make out of that bowl game? Because obviously bowl games don't have the same gravitas, but this was a game where it was 38-25, and you have your starting quarterback. And in Penn State. Like, that's both teams had their starting quarterback, who they're both returning in Jackson Dart and then Drew Aller. And
I just want somebody to tell me Drew Aller was hurt at the end of the season, and that would like completely change my mind about him, because he went in, he destroys Maryland, right? And then he has Michigan, Rutgers, Michigan State. Yeah, and then he's sub 47% passing 3 out of the next 4 games. Where did that even come from? It was like he completely forgot how to play football. The Michigan game was terrible. I remember watching that in a Home Depot, following my wife around who's looking at some power tools, and just texting back and forth with you like, how? Like, Penn State could be winning this game right now, but it's like he doesn't want it. And I think the last 4 games of the season left a bad taste. Let's not glance
over the fact that you said that you were in Home Depot with your wife watching the game
while
she was looking for power tools.
Okay, yeah. Well, let's not act like you didn't say that on Saturdays you can't be bothered to do anything. I at least went with her. I was
No, the funny part is that she was looking for the power tools. And
you trust me? You trust me with a jackhammer?
No, I do not. I definitely trust her with a jackhammer, though.
Yeah, no, that's her whole vibe. So I'm not mad. I'm not. You can make fun of me all you want for not being the one that's out there with a power saw. I plant flowers, and I do. We got some role reversals. It's 2024, George.
Yes, let's lean into it.
She builds the garden boxes, and I fill them with vegetables.
Yes, and you fill them with love and vegetables. But mind you, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just funny. Now, on the West Virginia side, right? West Virginia is a team that people don't really have the highest hopes for, in terms of
you do.
Brett Ciancia picked them 9th in the Big 12 and 34th overall, which is not bad at 34th overall. Last year they lost to.
Huh? You like them a lot. You like Neil Brown. You like the direction.
Yeah. They lost to Penn State, Houston, Oklahoma State, and Oklahoma last year. And they played a lot of close games. And this feels like where Pittsburgh's head coach called out Penn State in saying, oh man, if we can get Penn State to schedule us, this feels like if we can get Penn State to schedule us kind of games. And what's the current line on this, Ralph? Because this feels just like that Georgia Tech Florida State game to me, where this has trap game written all over it.
Okay, so it keeps moving in the direction that you said, which I'm having a hard time believing. It originally opened at 10.5, and now it's all the way down to Penn State -8.
Yeah, I if I could have bet it at 10.5, I that was easy money, easy money.
Really?
Even at 8, I feel all right, but I felt great at 10.5 because that gives me a touchdown and a field goal. But now I got a touchdown and a 2 point. I essentially got a touchdown, so I'm still taking Virginia -8. I'm sorry, Virginia, West Virginia +8. Easy money, Ralph. Easy money.
Man, and Garrett Green, starting in mid-October last year, became just a monster. And he wasn't always the best passer. He had quite a few good games, but holy heck, man, he was running the football against Cincinnati. 154 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns. He had 3 rushing touchdowns at UCF. He tore Baylor up for 103 yards and 2 touchdowns. Um, he might have a level of confidence that helps him rebound from last year's game. I'm still going to call this one 27-14 Penn State, which means the Nittany Lions cover. So we're on opposite sides of the first 2 games.
Ooh, nice. All right, next game. Miami at the Swamp versus Florida. And Miami, if you go on the Unafraid show, new content out. Miami has been saved by the Pac 12. They got Damian Martinez, great running back, over 6 yards a carry the last 2 years to come over from Oregon State. They got Washington State's quarterback, Cam Ward, who Miami fans are going to have a love-hate relationship with Cam Ward. But the biggest question of it all, Mario Cristobal, whose offenses have been mid a lot, and they have not knocked the doors off of people like you would have expected them to do. Like you would have expected throughout his career at Oregon and everything else that he would have more blowout victories, but he doesn't, which should be a little bit concerning. And it got blamed on Tyler Van Dyke last year. It got blamed on everybody else. But Ralph, with this offense, there is nobody to blame. And people are picking Florida to only win 5 games this year. I don't see it. I think that they exceed expectations. And this is one of those games, Ralph. What is the line on this game? Because I believe this is a game that Florida can win.
You are right in line with Las Vegas because the Gators are actually they're pretty close on this. It's Miami -2.5. So even Vegas believes that this is a toss-up.
Yeah. This is the Miami team that lost to Georgia Tech on bad coaching, 23-20, which should not have even been a thing. You know what I mean? The game shouldn't have been that close. Then they lost the very next week to North Carolina, 41-31. That's a lot of points. They lost to NC State 20-6. And I know that were switching out quarterbacks and all that stuff. They lost to Florida State 27-20. And that may have been the game that was that the game before or the game after? Oh no. That was the game before Jordan Travis got hurt. So Jordan Travis didn't play in that game, I don't think.
Right.
Because they were without him for the last 3 games of the year. They lost to Louisville 38-31. And then they came back and beat Boston College and then lost to Rutgers in the bowl game. To Rutgers.
No, not a great year. They did play 3 top 12 teams at the time and lost all 3 of those games. I think everybody would probably agree that Miami was not a top 15 team.
No.
Last year, even though they flirted with the teens, pause. They got to ranked 17th in the first week of October. They did figure some things against Boston College out down the stretch. Losing the bowl game just left a bad taste in everybody's mouth.
Yep.
But this is year 2 of Shannon Dawson being their offensive coordinator, and I mean, I remember Clayton Tune throwing for 7,600 yards combined in his final 2 seasons. 7,600 yards, 70 touchdowns. And I've just been thinking about the marriage of Cam Ward and Shannon Dawson, and I think it could be really, really special if Mario Cristobal takes the restrictor plates off.
Yep.
He got to get out of the way and just do what he did at Oregon, put him in charge of getting him on the phone with recruits. And then on game day, let him yell at Chris Hudson or whatever he does.
Now, Florida, on the other hand, Brett Ciancia, who's been the most accurate picker in terms of his preseason guide over the last 10 years, he has Florida picked at 12th in the SEC. And this is a team that lost to Florida State, Missouri, LSU, Arkansas, Georgia, Kentucky, and Utah last year. Because they started out at Utah at the beginning of the year. They went out there. Utah didn't even have Cam Rising. They didn't even have their quarterback. They were starting the pig farmer.
And Bryson Barnes.
Yes, Bryson
Shout
Barnes.
out Bryson.
They lost 24-11. Then they came back, beat McNeese State, Tennessee, Charlotte, lost to Kentucky, beat Vanderbilt, beat South Carolina, then lost to Georgia, Arkansas, LSU, Missouri, and Florida State. Their head coach in Billy Napier, good guy. But this is one, like, despite how difficult their schedule is this year, especially the back half of their schedule, there's no crying in baseball. There are no excuses in college football. For him to have the grace that he's going to need on the back end of the schedule, playing Georgia, Alabama, and the rest of that crew, this is a game that he must win.
I mean, man, I love Billy Napier. This has just been I get these urges to make excuses, but what am I going to say? You're at Florida. You're getting good players. Graham Mertz didn't play terrible last year. You had talent on defense. You just didn't get a lot of pressure on the quarterback. You had two different running backs go for over 700 yards. They should have been better. And so it really, I think their thing last year just came down to the fact that they didn't get to the quarterback. They had one player with more than 2.5 sacks. One at Florida.
Yeah, that's not good enough. That's not going to cut.
No. So, that's numbers that you would expect out of like teams that exclusively play other teams that run the option, right? Like, and so. If they don't have a pass rush, to me, that's really what it came down to. And their schedule last year. You talk about their schedule this year. Their schedule at the end of last year was also psychotic.
This year might be a little bit worse, even though the last game looks a little easier, because the back half of the schedule, Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, and then Florida State.
Yeah. And so, they've had, what is this going to be, Billy Napier's third year? The defense, and Billy Napier's an offense guy, but the defense was 87th in points allowed in 2022, 78th in points allowed in 2023. They have to be top 50 or it's never going to matter, ever. And that's, so I don't know. I don't have a lot of optimism surrounding Florida. And I know that it's a trap to have optimism in Miami, but I'm going with Miami to cover the 2.5.
All right. So are you, and I am going to pick Florida in this game.
Oh my gosh. We're definitely one of us is going to be very unhappy.
Yes.
At the end of Saturday.
So we got Notre Dame versus Texas A&M. Riley Leonard at quarterback for Notre Dame, who was at Duke last year, versus his former head coach and Mike Elko, who was at Duke last year, and then Connor Weigman as the quarterback over at Texas A&M. What is the line on this game? Because I have Notre Dame playing in the national championship versus the Oregon Ducks in what people believe is a shocker, because in my bracket I have them beating Alabama. No, I have them beating Georgia. So and Penn State in the bracket. They put together a top 7 offense and defense last year. Marcus
Yes,
Freeman,
they
hell
did.
of a defensive coordinator. The defense is going to be there. It is going to be good. Are they going to have enough on offense is the question. And Riley Leonard is an upgrade, I believe, from Sam Hartman last year at quarterback.
I think Marcus Freeman thinks it too. I listened to an interview with him earlier today, and I mean, he's a classy guy, but the way he talks about Riley Leonard versus the way he talks about Sam Hartman is just like, yeah, Riley Leonard is quiet, works hard, no nonsense, no hair stuff, just like good to go.
Did he actually say no hair stuff?
Kinda. It was an interview with Pardon My Take, and so it was, it was
Oh, it was
meant to be
cheeky too.
unserious. Yeah, but he was like, basically Marcus Freeman said, I would be out of the locker room, out of the showers before Sam Hartman, and I had to do post game media.
Oh,
But
that's funny.
I think Riley Leonard is he even though he came from Duke, I think he's a Notre Dame guy. Like I think he fits
Yeah.
in really, really well with what they're about, and I think he's going to give them an edge on offense they haven't had.
Yeah, and I'm a little bit unsure about what we're going to see out of Texas A&M's talent wise, because that whole 2022 recruiting class is basically gone. The Evan Stewarts, they've lost the defensive tackles, they've let like that greatest class of all time has been just decimated.
Yeah,
They're not there anymore for the vast majority of it. And Mike Elko's a
but
builder.
didn't you say though they're still over that blue chip rating?
Yes,
So
yes. That's the crazy is that they're still over 50% on the blue chip rating. That means the
yeah,
amount of 4 and 5 stars that are on your roster.
and they still have a lot of talent left. What I think is interesting is this line started at -1, and then all the money came in on Texas A&M. It started at -1 for Texas A&M. Now it's -3.
Dude, book it. Florida State +3 in Kyle Field with the weirdo Texas A&M. Hey, ho, hey, here we.
You just said Florida State -3 because you still got them on the brain when that was your lock of the week
Oh,
last week.
Notre Dame +3. Excuse me. Notre Dame +3 at
I'm
Kyle
riding.
Field.
I'm riding with you, and if it was Notre Dame -3, I'd still be taking them.
Yes. Why don't people believe in Notre Dame? I do not understand why. Y'all gonna learn today.
Yeah, again,
Y'all gonna learn
you know how
Saturday.
insane it is to have a top 7 offense and a top 7 defense in the same season at Notre Dame when they didn't even get as good of quarterback play as they should have, and Audric Estime like faltered down the stretch. Like that, they are. I hate saying
Their only
underrated because
losses
they're
last
always
year were
overrated.
to Ohio State, whose only loss was to Michigan. And
they barely lost that Ohio State
yes,
game.
and that was a 3-point game. That was a controversial ending as well because Notre Dame only had 10 men on the field for the last play of the game. For the last 2 plays of the game, they lost to Louisville, and they lost to Clemson by 8.
And that was down the stretch when Hartman and Estime weren't giving you what they gave you early in the season. So, man, I don't know. I think they could be really good with Riley Leonard. I calling Notre Dame underrated makes me want to throw up in my mouth.
Let's go Golden Domers. Make your boy right. Make your boy right. All right, the last game that we got to talk about today is the last game at least is we got USC versus LSU in Las Vegas at Allegiant Stadium, which is one of my favorite stadiums around right now. Miller Moss, Garrett Nussmeier. Both of these teams were, to put it nicely, shitty on defense last year. That's to put it nicely. They were cash trash on defense. So much so on LSU side that Jaden Daniels got a Heisman Trophy because They couldn't because they couldn't even pull him out of the game against FCS teams. So, and USC scoring over 40 points a game with Heisman Trophy winner, #1 pick, couldn't put out a good defense. Now, USC and Lincoln Riley have put a defensive staff together, a hell of a defensive staff. DeAnton Lynn at defensive coordinator, um, Matt Entz, North Dakota State's head coach, over as the linebackers coach. Eric Henderson, defensive line coach for the Rams, over there now. This defense schematically is going to be better at USC. But the question is Lincoln Riley committed to the physicality that it takes in practice? Because he's an offensive guy, and offensive guys don't like to get their cute little weapons knocked around. And will he allow the physicality in practice that it takes to play with the big boys?
I don't know, but I do know that if I could give out an award for who had the biggest upgrade on their defensive staff last year, I would have to split it between USC and LSU, who hired Blake Baker away from Missouri after an 11-win season. So, this is going to be just an awesome test. This is going to be so much fun. I cannot wait for this game. And I got a little like sickness in me, I think, to where when anything bad happens to either one of these teams, I giggle a little bit. But because it's been so bad, because you have LSU being an SEC team out here giving up 40 points in some games, and then you have USC, Caleb Williams out here having one of the greatest seasons in college football history, and they don't even bother to get him a defense to follow it up for his senior year. And so, the fact that, they're giving up 60 points to Tulane or whatever, that type of stuff is so funny to me. But they're obviously both very serious about getting better. It's just hilarious that they have to start out against each other. What if this game ends up being like 14-10?
That would be shocking. Honestly, but then we would have to ask questions about like Miller Moss, because Lincoln Riley's offense scores.
Yeah.
So for them to either have 14 or 10 points, and we obviously don't believe that roster wise that LSU or USC, even with an improved defense, is going to be like a top 5 or top 10 defense.
Right.
So, they're going to be hoping to be like top 25 instead of like 90s and 100. So, like, that's a significant improvement. And what's the line on this game, Ralph?
-6. Can you guess who it's in favor of? Oh, no, it opened at -6, and then a bunch of money came in on USC. It is now LSU -4.5.
Yeah, I think that 4.5 and 6 feel about the same to me, because this is going to be a touchdown game. And
is the Pac-12 allegiance in you just completely dead at this point? There's like no urge whatsoever to take USC just to take USC.
What Pac-12?
No.
And remember, I was a back-to-pack guy.
Oh, big time.
Man.
You know who is not a back-to-pack guy?
Who?
Any administrator at USC.
Oh yeah, nope. And they have actually actively tried to keep Oregon out of the Big Ten. So, hey man, you get what you get. Give me the Tigers.
I will.
And that little measly 4.5. Ooh yeah, I like it.
For no other reason than to just have 4 games different than you. I do think LSU wins. I think it's on a field goal, so give me USC.
I love it. I'm going to be 5-0. Ralph's going to be 1-4 next week. This is going to be excellent. This is a great way to start. All right.
And I'm going to be asking, did you cheat?
And before we get you guys out of here, Ralph has a quarterback wheel of death that has been going on, because a lot of these quarterback transfers have just been rearranging chairs on the Titanic. Just, one guy goes to one place, another guy replaces him. It's like a whole little triangle. And so he's going to ask which guys are going to have the better season. Let's get it, Ralph.
Okay, so this is our quarterback musical chairs. Anytime I look at a quarterback who has transferred from one school to another, I think about like who left, who's still there, and they're going to be measuring themselves against each other, right? So I'm going to give you 7 groups quickly, 7 groups, and each time I give you a group, I want you to rank the group. Like
Okay.
just based on stats, not team success, nothing else. Who you think's going to have the best stats? Because these guys are measuring themselves against each other.
Yep.
So, group number 1, it's a softball. Dylan Gabriel at Oregon, and the quarterback who is replacing him at Oklahoma, Jackson Arnold.
Dylan Gabriel. History says that he's going to throw for like 4,000 yards and a bunch of touchdowns against a guy who hasn't.
All right, so then I'm gonna get a former Oregon quarterback in the mix, and I'm gonna say Baron Morton at Texas Tech or Tyler Shuck at Louisville.
Give me Tyler Shuck. He's an 8th year senior, and no, I mean he was literally in the 2018 recruiting class,
and he was an early enrollee as well.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So he actually got there in the beginning of 2018, in January of 2018. He might have did he practice in the bowl game with them? So he might have showed up in December of 2017.
Yeah.
So Louisville's offense likes to open up. He can actually move a lot better than people thought he could, and he was a willing runner, even though he got hurt last year doing. And give me Tyler Shuck. I said it correctly.
Okay.
Yes, Shuck.
Yeah, you did.
Duck. Yes,
you did. You got to drop that video, by the way, of him calling you out. You got to drop that short.
Yes.
Okay, so the next grouping, this one it gets a little more complicated because this is a group of 3. Quinn Ewers, Malik Murphy, who started 2 games at Texas last year and is now at Duke, and Riley Leonard, who is at Notre Dame, who was at Duke last year. What do you think the order is going to be as far as
this
stats?
is an easy one for me. Riley Leonard. And this is probably shocking to people because, Malik Murphy at Duke. Duke's just going to be okay this year. He can have a good year, and statistically, it won't be better than Riley Leonard, who's going to be at Notre Dame, who's going to put up some pretty gaudy stats, I believe. Now, Quinn Ewers, he could put up the best numbers, but I am not 100% sure that he's going to be the starter for the entire season. Therefore, and people are just stopping their televisions right now and stopping. Yes, because there's a good faction of that team and people involved in that program that believe that Arch Manning is the man. And if their offense struggles at all, he's coming in the game. So, therefore, my safest bet is Riley Leonard.
All right, the next one is going to get a little bit more fun. This is probably the sexiest one of all of them. Will Howard at Ohio State.
Yep.
Avery Johnson at Kansas State, and Will Howard left Kansas State for Ohio State, or Kyle McCord at Syracuse. Who will have the best stats of the 3 of them?
Avery Johnson.
All right.
Over at Kansas State.
Okay, so this one is interesting because you probably know more about this one than most people. Aiden Childs, who went from Oregon State to Michigan State. DJ Uiagalelei, who didn't go with Jonathan Smith to Michigan State, went to Florida State instead, already had his first game. Sam Levitt, who said, I don't want anything to do with Jonathan Smith because he didn't recruit me in high school, and went to Arizona State. And for fun, I'll throw Cade Klubnik in there because that is who your boy chose over DJU in Clemson.
Aiden Childs.
Aiden Childs, the best stats of all 4 of them.
Because he came on the Unafraid Show, which you guys can go watch his interview on the Unafraid Show. It has nothing to do with that. The kid's a rock star. This kid is a first-round pick. He is going to put up big-time numbers. We've already seen one game from DJ, and he's not the 300-yard guy. Anyway, even if he's playing well, efficient, he's like a 260 guy. And along with a little bit of rushing and stuff like that, and we don't believe in Cade Klubnik. We've already established that. And then, and who was the last one?
Sam Levitt, who decided I don't want to be at Michigan
I don't
State.
think
I want to
Arizona
be with
State's going
Jonathan
to be
Smith.
good enough for him to put up great numbers.
Okay. All right. Now the next two groups, the final group.
Trenton Bourget is probably going to end up starting a few games anyway for whatever reason.
History repeating itself. Okay, so the next two groups, I'm going to give you 5 names. You just have to give me one back. Mikey Keene, who started at UCF and is now at Fresno State.
Mm-hmm.
Thomas Castellanos, who started at UCF and is now at Boston College. KJ Jefferson, who is at UCF now.
From Arkansas.
Taylon Green, who is at Arkansas from Boise State. Or Maddox Madsen, who surprised everybody by winning the Boise State job. Which of those 5 is going to have the best statistical year?
Who was the second one?
Mikey Keene, Thomas Castellanos, KJ Jefferson.
Thomas Castellanos at wait, is he at Boise? Wait, where's he?
Boston College.
Yeah. He was there last year. He's the little Kyler Murray lookalike. I'm gonna go Castellanos because he's got a new head coach in Bill O'Brien, who has abandoned, like, he's not a run and punt kind of coach like their previous coach who quit and went to the NFL. Yeah, I'm gonna go Thomas Castellanos.
All right, last one, and this is a weird one because this is all musical chairs. Here we go. Blake Shapen, former Baylor quarterback who is now at Mississippi State.
Yep.
Kyron Drones, who I know you like, who was at Baylor as well and is now at Virginia Tech. DeQuan Finn, who is at Baylor right now and came from, I believe, Toledo.
Mm-hmm.
Will Rogers, who left Mississippi State for Washington to go play with Jed Fish.
Ooh.
And has like a ton of yards, but didn't fit in Zach Arnett's offense last year. Or the quarterback that did not move, Noah Fafita at Arizona.
Oh, so what are we talking about? I was going with DeQuan Finn until you put Noah Fafita in there. No, dude, Noah Fafita, out of high school, if he were 3 inches taller, he would have been a 5-star. And in college, he's been terrific. He's got a first-round pick at wideout. He's playing for a good head coach in Brennan. That was the easiest one. Easy.
I thought about not including him because he didn't transfer anywhere, but because his coach did. So erase him from the picture. Finn, Drones,
Finn over at Baylor.
Okay.
Because he was really good at Toledo last year, and he's put the best tape down. It's so far.
That'll make Baylor fans feel a big sense of relief knowing that, like, Blake Shapen is
will
out
actually
there.
have somebody who can throw the ball.
Right.
Yep. All right. Before we want to leave you guys on this one. So Fran Brown, head coach at Syracuse. Ralph was at ACC Media Day, and he brought him up a stat that he has something to say about kids he recruits over at Syracuse.
The right way, we're gonna do the right thing. Things will work itself out.
Do you think there's
Thank
an
you, Coach.
advantage
Appreciate it.
to
Nice meeting you.
kids
Too,
having like a brand new mindset though? You know, they might not know about Jim Brown, but they also don't know 14 out of the last 19 seasons Syracuse had 2 conference wins or less. They know.
Hold on, say that again. 14 out of the last 19
seasons,
2 conference wins or less. Cool. So that means we can only go up.
Right, and the kids, they only know what you show them. You're coming into this year top 40 recruiting class, top 25 transfer class. So their experience with Syracuse is
success. And if they don't know who Jim Brown is, they shouldn't play football at our school.
Right.
I don't want to recruit you. Like, that's a name that everyone in the world will know. Yeah. It's like LeBron James. 25 years from now, kids talk about LeBron James. You're going to know it. Michael Jordan. You know what that is? Wilt Chamberlain. Yeah, I know who Wilt Chamberlain is. Jim Brown's name is just like Michael Jordan. Jim Brown. Like, that makes sense. So if they don't know Jim Brown, I got to watch, does this guy like football? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You start to look at it. It's like, all right, now maybe depending on the kid, we could say he might not know a couple other guys, but if you don't know who Marvin Harrison Sr. is, do you like football? You're a defensive lineman and you're a pass rusher and you have no idea who Dwight Freeney is. do you really like the game of football?
You should be interested in the people who have had the most success.
There's nothing like it. Without the past, how do you get a better future? You've got to really be able to engage that. And I think a lot of schools not schools, I think a lot of time, people weren't putting it back at that. They kind of, it's a new era. I'm a coach. I come in, we're going to do what I want. It's my way. It's like, no, I need all those legends. I want to make sure that we understand why were y'all so successful.